And this lay Theotoken brochure, I'll be talking about what Theotokens are. And on the back of that is my website and YouTube channel. And at the website, if you click at the very top, there's contacts, and you'll be able to get whatever you want to get a hold of me. So I'm very transparent and available. Ron is ready.
Very quickly, by way of introduction, I was invited to speak to a Marian Movement Cenacle. We are meeting April 23rd, 2021 in St. Edward's Catholic Church after the evening Mass. The usual format of the meeting is to begin with a rosary and then a reading from one of the messages to Father Gobbi. I asked to speak on number 451, the Apostles of the Last Time, because I want to show the historical development of Marian consecration from DeMontfort all the way through the cenacles of the Marian movement, which are now waning in membership, to the Order of the Mother of God. You can get a digital copy of the messages at our website, and we are gradually uploading YouTube podcasts to listen to the messages.
All right. May Jesus and Mary be loved by all hearts. That's the greeting prescribed in the rule given by Our Lady of LaSalette in 1846 for a future religious order of the Mother of God, whose priestly members she identified as the apostles of the last times. Rule number 22, my missionaries will be the apostles of the last times. They will preach the gospel of Jesus Christ in all its purity throughout the earth. They will preach on death, judgment, heaven, and hell. They will fortify people's faith so that when the devil will come, a great number of people may not be deceived. In the same apparition, Maximin said he called the devil a monster. And Melanie, in her secret that she received from Our Lady called it the Antichrist. And in the book of Revelation, we call it the beast, the dragon, and so forth. It's just not a pleasant, it's an entity, not just a single thing. And Melanie said, while the Most Holy Virgin was giving me the rule of the new order and speaking about the apostles of the last times, I saw that the missionary priests and sisters in every part of the globe saw them engaged in their apostolic works. And I saw the apostles of the last times in their habit. And it's a black tunic with a white sash and streamers, kind of like a bishop's sash, and a large crucifix, larger than this, with LaSalette hammers and pincers, which Mary was wearing during that apparition. Multiple times, Melanie referred to the apostles of the last times. But before the Blessed Mary had dictated that rule, that Saturday afternoon in the Alps, she had shared with Melanie the great secret of LaSalette, in which she said, I call the apostles of the last times, the faithful disciples of Jesus Christ, who have lived in contempt for the world and of themselves, in poverty and humility, in contempt and in silence, in prayer and in mortification, in chastity and in union with God, in suffering and unknown to the world. It is time that they come forth and enlighten the earth. So the apostles of the last times appears like a motif throughout that long discourse in the secret, in the rule, and in the vision or sight, because Melanie describes these apostles at work. That was 1846. The secret would not be published until 1879. The rule was never formally published until 2001. And the Order of the Mother of God is still waiting to be founded. We just Deacon read, Our Lady's words to Father Gobbi about the apostles of the last times. That locution was given to Father Gobbi in 1991. Do the math. 145 years after 1846. Entire paragraphs of the Marian movement messages in the Blue Book, scattered throughout the book, are straight out of the text of LaSalette. which was a forgotten apparition in the 1990s. So I strongly suspect Father Gobbi had no clue whatsoever that he was quoting from an apparition, or Mary was quoting from an apparition. Now, at 2021, we're 175 years down the road and still trying to unlock the role and mission of these apostles of the last times. A couple of weeks ago, April 6, 2021, or 2021, I was at St. Dominic's there in the heart of New Orleans, and I was invited to tell the story of my calling from a Carmelite cloister to promote the seventh rule of the church, which will give birth to many congregations in the centuries ahead. I was going to speak from notes on my laptop, and I had copied the wrong speech. So for my first ever, I had to just wing the whole hour, and that everybody told me I did so well, I should just never speak from notes again. I should just talk to people. And I thought, well, that's great, except that in this talk, I want to give a lot of quotations from Mary, and I want to get that right. And so this is a mix. I'm not reading a text, but I'm trying to look at bullet points, and I have a lot of bullet points, so I'm kind of going back and forth. I'll probably get lost at some point. Now that talk, for those of you who weren't there, it was a synopsis of my calling. Started out in Wichita, Kansas, Catholic schools. I entered the Carmelite cloister at 19. I spent 33 years, happy years there, and thought I would die at 100 like all good old nuns. And then got surprised by a locution during Holy Week about 10 years ago, and telling me I was supposed to leave the cloister, and found this, or promote this rule that had been given back in 1846. I didn't know anything about it. It was still in French as far as I knew, and I didn't have internet access, and so it was quite an odyssey for me to figure this out, to test this apparition, to bring it before my superiors, and to go forth with all the blessings of my superiors and go through the Vatican to get the dispensations and everything. And then in that talk, I talked about the apparition of LaSalette because it's pretty much forgotten. There's not much. It's starting to be revived now a little bit because so much of the secret that Melanie gave, which is no longer secret, it hasn't been secret since 1876 or so, there's so much now, it fits today so well. So you see a lot of clips on it on the internet, different YouTube, conspiracy, tinfoil hat people like me. They're out there reading these things, and they're starting to notice LaSalette, which was very much forgotten. And the reason it was forgotten was because the children were very much persecuted after the secrets came out, because the secrets were very harsh against the corruption of priests, religious, and Catholic leaders, political leaders. And so it wasn't a nice message. It wasn't just like Lourdes, oh, come to me and I will, come to the waters and I'll heal you. It was like, get your act together, repent, the priests are leading you in the wrong way. And at that time, you can wonder, were they really that corrupt in those days? I mean, we've got a lot of problems now, we know, but back then, was it so bad? In France, the basic problem was doctrinal and political. They were very much mixed up with Freemasonry. So I go into that, if there had been repentance at a serious level at that point, we might not be where we are today, but the message wasn't heeded, and of course, in order to kill the message, you hit the messengers. So Melanie and Maximin, their reputations were put through the mud over and over again, but many other Catholics came forward to try to defend them. So even today on the internet, you can find very mixed things about Melanie, which are totally untrue. It's called fake news. And so I go into that in my talk at St. Dominic's a couple weeks ago, and I uploaded that to my YouTube channel. And so I'm trying, I don't want to really repeat all that here, because I really want to focus on this is the Marian Movement group and a Cenacle, long established, some faithful people here, and also I'm told some new members who are just learning about it. And these messages are very important. So tonight, for the sake of the video, I'm speaking at St. Edward's Parish, a large parish, not technically in New Orleans, but only about half an hour from St. Dominic's. And it's April 23rd. And wouldn't you know, it's the feast of St. George, the dragon slayer. How perfect. Mary's always telling us that the dragon that she's in battle with in the Apocalypse in chapter 12 is the huge red murderous dragon of atheistic communism. Now, Carmelite formation lasts about 6 years from the day you walk in the door until the day you're allowed to finally pronounce solemn vows, which I did at the age of 25 in 1985. Now, don't do the math in your head. I'm 61 now, so that takes care of that. A year or two after my solemn vows, that would have been in like 1986 or 87, I'm not sure, I was looking for an empty box in one of the unused cells down at the end of the corridor. And I came across a whole case of Marian Movement blue books. What are these? Oh, I needed those messages. Oh, what joy, what comfort. I read them every day for the next 25 years, often taking the blue book with me for one of the 2 hours of daily mental prayer in our schedule. In the 80s and 90s, I felt very alone. Like, why did I have problems with the Catholic professors in my college and the priests' homilies every day and the direction that religious life was generally taking, while everybody around me thought everything was just fine? What was my problem? Mary's words to Father Gobbi echoed all my concerns and made me feel like I'm not crazy. What I'm seeing is what she's seeing, and she's sad about it, and I was sad about it. Mary saw a lot of sin in the church and in the world, and she said it wasn't going in a good direction. We were headed off a cliff. She was warning of wars and schism, of chastisements and persecutions, and eventually, in spite of everything, a triumph. But the triumph seemed contingent on consecration. Now, personal consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary was not the directive of a Marian apparition, even though we've had a lot since 1830, but the driving inspiration of St. Louis de Montfort. Montfort died in 1716, but his works did not come to light until about the 1840s, just at the time of the first public Marian apparition with a message for the world, the miraculous medal. And so those two together, the miracles of that medal and St. Louis de Montfort's wonderful book telling about how important Mary, devotion to Mary is just so critical for our times. And that just, those things entered deeply into good soil and grew into the immense tree of our present Marian era. Catholics ate that up, and those books, Montfort's books, were translated into so many languages back in the 1800s and onwards. And then the Legion of Mary began in 1921 in Ireland by Frank Duff. He was so moved by the DeMontfort consecration. He started a whole movement that mobilized the laity for all sorts of good works and instilled the importance of that personal consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. When I was, I guess I was just in, 7th grade or something, I joined the Junior Legion of Mary. It was just kind of there in our parish, and I just wanted anything with Mary, because some people came to us as I was a young child, and we learned about Fatima and some of the other apparitions that were happening, not yet approved, like Garabandal, that were hitting the news. And I was so interested. Mary must be important, so I joined the Legion of Mary, and so I know about that structure. And then there was going around in those years the massive Fatima Bue Army Pledge movement. I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember that. Some of them do. And you sign a little card, and it says on the card, I offer up every day the sacrifices of my daily duties. I pray the rosary every day, I promise. And I wear the scapular as profession of my promise as my consecration to Mary. So consecration was presumed in here, and I pledged to observe the 5 first Saturdays. And I took that very seriously, and so did thousands, maybe millions of other Catholics in those years. I signed that card. I don't know where it is, but I signed it somewhere. Heaven kept the fire burning. Almost 50 years ago, through one humble priest in Italy, the International Marian Movement of Priests started in the 1970s. Who can count the members? We only have records of those who took the trouble to enroll. We've got at least 400 Catholic cardinals and bishops, over 100,000 priests, several million laity, and most are religious, like myself, probably didn't enter our names. We didn't enroll because, well, you just belong to a community and it just didn't happen. So, I mean, it was okay to consider yourself a member, but you didn't enroll. So the movement was hot for the first 25 years of those active locutions. I remember every year we waited for that new blue book to come out with the next year's messages. What did she say? What's going to happen next? That was a very great thing for us. And today all these movements are sort of waning in membership. But a new movement with very deep roots, long prophesied, is starting at last to sprout. And it is destined to last for 1,000 years until the final day of judgment. DeMontfort taught us that the woman of Genesis is heading for a great battle, and she would crush the sky serpent with a special ops team. Her whole body of Mary is made up of all those consecrated to her over several generations, hundreds of years. All together they form this body of Mary that acts in the centuries. But her heel is like the Navy SEALs, and they'll have a special mission for direct contact to finally crush that beast. The Legion of Mary taught the laity a military self-discipline, how to serve in her army, especially by spreading the faith in countries where Christ isn't well known, and in countries where Christians have grown slack. I know in some parishes right now there's a move to go door to door to take a census of anyone who's a fallen away Catholic, and the Legion of Mary is there trying to personally invite and draw these people back. It's a beautiful, beautiful apostolate. Now, the Bue Army Pledge trained children and reminded Catholics how to offer up prayers and sacrifices like the little children of Fatima. If those little kids could get up their lunch and say prayers, what am I doing? What a wimp. And so these pledges rained down graces from heaven to soften hearts for conversions. Mary was always eager to save souls, but she needed those graces won by sacrifices and prayer. And then the Cenacles of the Marian Movement of Priests taught members how to listen to what the good spirit is saying to the churches and to recognize what the evil spirits are saying to the churches. Listen to her messages, these deep, deep messages. The Blue Book is an intense revelation. Everyone, it's almost like scripture. I mean, they're so intense, these messages. They're so deep. This is a time, she said, to beware of false prophets, of false ideologies, of false theology, and of false Catholics, lay, clergy, and religious. This year, our nation is learning a lot about fake news in the secular world. It's an even bigger problem in the church because it has eternal consequences for souls. Above all, the Marian Movement of Priests taught the importance of personal consecration, of living this consecration with an intentional prayer life. Now at Fatima, or subsequently at Tui in Portugal, when she appeared again to Sister Lucia, Mary did not ask for personal consecration to her heart, but of Russia, an Orthodox nation, a millennium in schism from the Catholic Church, and now millions of martyrs were falling under a radical, atheistic, communist regime. What good will it do for a pope to consecrate Russia in the name of all the bishops and the whole church unless the bishops and the faithful are living that consecration? What good is a formula? The consecration to Russia is not a magic incantation. It has to be linked like cause and effect. On March 25th, 1984, Pope John Paul II wanted very much to consecrate Russia explicitly by name, but he was prevented. I am sure it was not so much just the political motivations that's going on inside the Vatican, but because divine providence decreed that the church was not living that consecration at the necessary level yet. On that very day, in 1984, Our Lady Mother said to Father Gobbi that it didn't do the trick. I bless this courageous act of my Pope in his wish to entrust the world and all the nations to my Immaculate Heart. I receive this goodwill with love and gratitude, and because of it, I promise to intervene to shorten greatly the hours of the purification and to lessen the gravity of the great trial. But I ask this consecration also from all the bishops, from all the priests, from all religious, and from all the faithful. The whole church must assemble in the secure refuge of my Immaculate Heart. So she was saying it didn't cut the mustard. We're still going to have to wait for the Pope to do it explicitly with Russia in mind. Now in the cloister, I meditate on these messages and prayed for hearts to be consecrated to her. I knew it didn't have to be every last person in the church, but it was a numbers game nonetheless. God could not save Sodom and Gomorrah unless there was a small base there. Yahweh answered Abraham, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it." Then Abraham said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry. Suppose just 10 are found there." Yahweh answered, "For the sake of 10 righteous men, I will not destroy it." What was the population of Sodom? If we knew that, we would have the formula. How many souls, how many righteous souls versus how many evil, and you can still keep things going without bringing down divine wrath. We live in a physical realm. Our sins and good deeds are expressed in real time, in real places. Souls in purgatory need a certain number of masses or rosaries or even money offerings to offset their bad deeds. Some basic number of personal consecration to the person of the Queen of Heaven will guarantee that triumph. In 1988, Mary told Father Gobbi, "In a period of 10 years, there will come to completion the time of the Great Tribulation, which has been foretold to you in Holy Scripture before the second coming of Jesus." She goes on, "In a period of 10 years, the mystery of iniquity prepared for by the ever-increasing spread of apostasy will become manifest. In a period of 10 years, all the secrets which I have revealed to some of my children will come to pass, and all the events which have been foretold to you by me will take place." December 1994, "I confirm to you that by the great jubilee of the year 2000, there will take place the triumph of my Immaculate Heart, which I foretold to you at Fatima. And this will come to pass with the return of Jesus in glory, to establish his reign in the world. Thus you will at last be able to see with your own eyes the new heavens and the new earth." But there was a question regarding the preposition per, P-E-R, in the original Italian. The English word by doesn't have quite the equivalent. Per can mean during the Great Jubilee year or as a consequence of the Great Jubilee year. As late as June 2000, Father Gobbi was telling people that surely Our Lady means during the year. But after the close of the Jubilee in January, he wrote, "I believe now that the authentic meaning is, as a consequence of the Great Jubilee year, the triumph of the Immaculate Heart will occur." Father Gobbi even believed that Christ's second coming would occur during the Jubilee. From the cloister, I never believed that. I just chuckled at this simple priest. Mary never said that the second coming was the final end of the world judgment. She always said coming in glory, and the triumph of her heart would indicate his Eucharistic reign. His heart would be glorified. His Father would be glorified because the world would embrace the commandments. The Spirit would be glorified because most of the world would accept baptism, and division among Christians would be healed. Father Gobbi had the charism of prophecy. He was given a message, and he related the message in a credible way, submitting to the tests of those in authority over him, walking in obedience for years and years, serving that message. But prophets almost never have the gift of interpretation of prophecy. That's a different charism. Naturally, they want to speculate like all other believers, but that's all they can do. We must never be surprised if personal words uttered by visionaries, for example, Sister Lucia, don't come to pass. Let's read some statistics that I found on a website. What happened in that great Jubilee year? At least 25 million persons passed through the holy doors in Rome, expressing their sincere desire to return to Jesus and to receive his mercy and forgiveness by means of the sacraments and the indulgences. 2 million young people gathered in Rome for the Jubilee event for the youth, expressing their unity with the Holy Father and their desire to experience Jesus in their lives. Hundreds of thousands attended the week-long Eucharistic Congress in June. Then there was the beatification of the shepherd children, Jacinta and Francisco, in May. and the publication of the third Secret of Fatima in June. The solemn act of entrustment to Our Lady of Fatima, which the Pope made in October with the bishops who were present, in which he consecrated the Church and humanity to Mary once again, this time at the beginning of the third millennium. Pope John Paul had wanted to recognize that the world uses the date dates its calendar, starting with the year of not the local king, but the year of the birth of the King of Kings. 2000 marked a huge jubilee anniversary, and he wanted the whole world to convert. Through his influence, he not only caused individuals, but even nations to forgive debts. He started preparing in 1997 by declaring 3 separate holy years, one for each person of the Trinity, to get ready for this great Jubilee. So there were already indulgences and events. It was a massive thing. As some of you, I think you're old enough to remember that. It was a big deal. And Our Lady had said over and over that the main reason for Marian Movement was to stir up priests to urge the faithful to consecrate themselves to her heart and to live that consecration. So 1997, that was the year that John Paul marked as the beginning, the introducing the great Jubilee year. And that was the last of Mary's messages to Father Gobbi. There was a connection. There was a connection. That was like the finale. She had her numbers. She had enough people consecrated to her. She had enough graces that she needed to start moving this triumph along. It took years of getting there, to get people to offer their sacrifices, their rosaries, and to give themselves to her. It's very special and very deep. In 1993, Our Lady said, "I desire that the task entrusted to the Marian Movement of Priests be brought to its conclusion in the shortest time possible, and that all make right away the consecration to my Immaculate Heart, which I have asked for. In the hearts of my little children, I want to be consoled by your filial love and to obtain the great reparation which I have asked of you, and which I have need, in order to shorten the great sufferings." That was 93, 97, apparently came to completion. On our House of Mary website, which is you can get it on the back of most of these booklets, especially this folder, you can get a digital copy of the Blue Book and do your own word search to demonstrate how Mary kept saying that the main objective of the Marian Movement of Priests was consecration to her heart, personal consecration, which I believe was in preparation for an authentic church consecration of Russia and the world. So it was really very Carmelite for me, because these messages, what do? They focus on virtues. They teach you to stay close to her. They help you to recognize deceitful theology so you can stay on the right track. It was very Carmelite for me, because it was a personal formation of a solid interior life. And that's what happens when people come to these cenacles. They're listening to Mary, they're praying together, they share a few insights with each other, and they're being formed by Mary's Spirit. She said, "This is the army that I am preparing. This is the cohort of my priests that I am now gathering from all parts of the world. A hidden cohort, like Carmelites, that Jesus may offer them to the Father as a sign of reparation and atonement." Again, "What must you do, my sons, apostles of my immaculate and sorrowful heart? You must become a hidden seed, ready even to die for the internal unity of the church." Again, in hiddenness and confidence, in the humble fulfillment of your daily duties, in the perfect imitation of Jesus, and in poverty and contempt for the world, another phrase from LaSalette, "and for yourselves, join me in waging battle each day." Later, "Each day in silence and in hiddenness, the Heavenly Mother is waging her battle against her adversary." And later, "The great prodigies which I am accomplishing today are those of transforming completely the life of my children, that they may become courageous witnesses of faith and luminous examples of holiness." So there, it was a formation, and she wasn't calling for really active deeds other than your daily duties with her Spirit, close to her, listening to her. So for a long time, the Marian Movement, it wasn't really, she didn't even want a lot of organization. She just wanted to form everyone to great levels of holiness. And it went on. And how many joined and died, joined and died? This went on for multiple generations now. But then in 1979, she says, the time has now come for you to emerge from your hiddenness and to go out and enlighten the earth. Present yourselves to all as my sons, for I am always with you. Just a caveat for those not familiar. Okay, it's a Marian Movement of Priests, but she's always encouraging everybody because we're all a priestly people. We all have that lay priesthood in us. So she's especially talking to the priests, but she's also pulling out our priestly charism to minister to others in the workplace or religious life where we are, so that we can bring the gospel, maybe not preaching from a pulpit in a church, but preaching from your desk, from your typewriter, from wherever you are in your life. So when she says to priests, just take that to yourselves. Present yourselves to all as my sons, for I'm always with you. Let faith be the light which illumines you in these days of darkness. Let it be zeal alone for the honor and glory of my son Jesus, which consumes you. Straight out of LaSalette. Fight, sons of the light, few though you are. Many will follow in your footsteps and will become part of my cohort, because the hour of my battle has now come. And then quoting almost verbatim from the secret given to Melanie, I call the apostles of the last times. It is time that they come forth and enlighten the earth. Fight, children of the light, you few who see, for behold, the time of times, the end of ends, she said in 1846. Now what is the fight? Marian Movement 254, fight against sin and against compromise with the weapons of prayer and suffering. 1989, she says, in silence and in hiddenness, each day I'm preparing my great victory over the dragon in the triumph of my Immaculate Heart in the world. Now we just read this evening, the deacon read the Apostles of the Last Times. The whole message is the Apostles of the Last Times, which is over and over used in the rule and in the secret, comes up all the times in LaSalette. And quote, just calling a couple phrases from tonight, there awaits you the task of rebuilding the church. There awaits you the task of evangelizing this poor humanity, and thus you become apostles of a new era. Your times have come, she said this in 1991, and I have formed you during these years so that you may be able to give now your strong witness as faithful disciples of Jesus, even to the shedding of your blood. And in the very last message of LaSalette, of Father Gobbi, it's right straight out of the secret. You little babes consecrated to me, who live by my own spirit, are the apostles of the last times. Live as faithful disciples of Jesus in contempt for the world and for yourselves. We've already said it. And she goes on, it's time that they come forth and enlighten the earth. That last message was in 1997, and Father Gobbi was so surprised that was it. She was done. And 13 years later, he said, on October 25th, 2010, he was at Fatima. He was talking to Mary. He said, here at Fatima, you, Mary, called me to this work, and you entrusted to me the task of going everywhere to invite all priests to consecrate themselves to your Immaculate Heart. I have accomplished this mission in these years, having made 1,500 flights and many other trips by car and train. I have gone many times to the 5 continents to lead my brother priests to make the consecration to your Immaculate Heart. The majority of them are now in heaven, and many others are still on this earth. But this year, an extraordinary event occurred. On May 12th, here at Fatima, the Holy Father, Benedict XVI, consecrated all of the priests of the world to your Immaculate Heart. Therefore, with this consecration, it seems as if my task is finished, that my journeys have come to an end. If we live the consecration, our life becomes transformed. We ourselves become rays of your love, which spread evermore in every part of the world. And Father Gobbi died a year later on the feast of the apostles, Peter and Paul. So what happened to the apostles of the last times in going forth to enlighten the earth? It seemed to him it was just a personal consecration. He didn't quite quite lead people out to become whatever this apostles of the last times is going to be. And notice none of these entities was about Mary's messages, but imbibing her spirit. From DeMontfort, 1830 onwards, he talks about chains. Wear chains as be slaves of Mary, live in her spirit, get to know her, be close to her, pray with her, do whatever she inspires you to do. It was preparing souls to be the healed, to fight the Antichrist. And in the Legion of Mary, it was a highly structured organization built on the Roman military model, preparing the laity to take an active role. And many did. A Bue Army Pledge to sign a card, but there was no meetings, no follow-up. It was a personal pledge to develop a relationship with God and Mary. And then the Marian Movement of Cenacles, not a formal apostolate. Mine is an apocalyptic message because you are in the heart of that which has been announced to you in the last and so very important book of sacred scripture. If I have asked for no juridical structure for the Marian movement, it is because I want it to be spread in silence and hiddenness. Some of you believe that even for my movement it's necessary to do, to write, to act, yet your silence is necessary. Speak by your life. Even now, the rules for the Cenacle are to just give a brief time for fraternal sharing, but this time must never digress into discussion of other topics, apparitions, or messages, or devotions. So I'm breaking your custom right now. So what is the next stage in this battle between the woman and the dragon? A religious order. That's what she said, formed by her spirit. It's been in preparation for all these years. People, the church has been formed by her spirit. There are many, many souls who listen to Mary and are ready. They know that we're heading for a battle. It's about here. And so this religious order will have convents of men and women, brothers, priests, sisters, nuns, all over the world, but a large contingent of lay members. This is the only rule of the 7 rules of the Church for Religious Life. Most of you probably don't know, but almost all the thousands of congregations that are in the world are under the umbrella of one of 6 major rules, either Benedict, Ignatius, Augustine, Albert, Basil, and Francis. And then Mary gave us a 7th rule, which hasn't yet borne fruit. It hasn't become a rule. But once you get an umbrella, then you get all kinds of congregations coming under that umbrella, specifically doing different things in the church. But this is the only rule that mentions lay people in the rule as important members, essential to the charism. The other rules eventually developed, lay people could be inspired by the Ignatius or inspired by Benedict, and they became oblates or 3rd order members, but they're not in the rule. The rule can survive, the charism can survive without lay members. Not so with this one. This rule presumes it's built on lay people being involved in this kind of thing. There is a battle in the world. We've got to claim the whole world for Mary, for Jesus and Mary. You're all a part of the triumph. And so the Marian movement is almost like the messenger, almost like the formation book. I mean, that will be what I send my novices to. If you want to learn, get ready for your job here, go read the Marian movement messages. Go read DeMontfort. Make the Consecration of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Study the messages of Mary. And it's like a Bible. There's so many to study. So these things are still relevant. These movements and Legion of Mary, they're so good. But there's something that's going to bring all this together into fruition, and it will be this religious order that it's coming closer to being formed. I think I'm around the corner from finally getting a bishop, because you really can't start anything officially until you get a bishop, but we're getting closer there. I talked about at St. Dominic's, one of the hurdles for me has been most of the documentation on LaSalette that prove that Melanie received a rule, that demonstrate that she actually wrote some constitutions, that demonstrate that she was a credible witness and not all the terrible things written about her over the decades. All that's in French. And so I have been seeking French volunteers who can translate a few pages, a few letters, or any amount of work if you're willing to translate to help get this into English, because I will have to cite that for the Constitution, some of those passages, and we need that for history too, because this is going to be a very important rule going forward. Melanie saw and envisioned that there would be many congregations sprouting from it, and Our Lady has said, and the book of Revelation says, once there's a triumph, we're talking about 1,000 years. We're not near the end of the world, we're near the end of an era. That's why the apostles of the last times is always in the plural. It's not the last time, it's the times. We are now in the time dominated by Satan and the evil spirits, and we're going to move into a new time dominated by the spirits of Jesus and Mary, when the evil spirits will be cast out of the earth. Can you imagine how much peace we'll have when we don't have any demons fooling us around, messing with our minds? It's just so beautiful. That will be the triumph in many ways. That's when we can really convert the world and bear witness. But to get there, we know that we have a lot to go through. And so tonight, this was just kind of introducing you to an idea that's not really fully there yet. I mean, I've got more lay Theotokans. They call themselves, they chose the name Theotokos. You know, when Francis wrote a rule, those who followed him, he called it the little brothers, the brothers of the order of the minor, I forget what's in Latin, but the brothers said, oh, we're just Franciscans because we follow Francis. And the same with the Benedict, they call them Benedictines. Ignatius wanted the company of Jesus, so that stuck, it's the Jesuits. And then they said, well, what do we call ourselves? Because Mary says this is the order of the Mother of God. And in Greek, Mother of God is Theotokos. And so we're Theotokans. That's what the lay people have said. I've got a large prayer group, and not a huge prayer group, but a solid prayer group for several years in Wichita that follows around. And so this order is starting with a third order before we got a first or a second order. So it's a grassroots movement, and we're building a large website. I call it, it's not a cute little website with lots of little flicky pictures. It's a cargo ship with doors that open into doors and more doors, and we're just gonna load it with all sorts of, I've been digitizing all the messages and books that I can find on Our Lady that are approved, and even some that are probably credible. And so we're trying to get out there as digital things that you don't have to buy books, but you can just get it free. You can download all these things or just read them online. And then it will be a connecting point for lay Theotokans. And we've done several videos explaining the charism of lay Theotokans or religious if they want. I take applications for anybody who wants to be a sister or brother here. I'll take life. And so there's a lot on the website. It's getting better. It's going to get better and bigger as soon as it's hard to upload it all. I've got some volunteers, but it's hard to manage all your volunteers too. So it's coming. It's about to be born, I really think. And I was sort of pushed down here into New Orleans. My saga is stuff, but I'm just finding so many on fire lay Catholics who are just love Mary and are serious about this. And so you're listening. So I know somehow she's calling you. She'll inspire you what to do. And I may end up here in Louisiana, one of these dioceses down here. That's quite possible. And I would be happy. It's very similar. I've been all over the United States. I was a SALT sister for a while. My story's elsewhere. You can get online. Everything I do is online. I've been all over the United States, and Louisiana is so similar to Kansas. I mean, you walk in a store, people will smile at you. They actually look at you, and people are so courteous. I mean, they let you cut in when you're driving. They always say, "Oh, you go first. You go first." There's a long, deep Christian culture here, Catholic culture, and beautiful churches and adoration chapels, and lots of vocations, I think. But we need more vocations. The religious life has taken a hit because they got lost along their way. But this order will actually have special houses for religious who have lost their fervor, and to help them get back and go off back and be a good Benedictine or a good Dominican. So this is a very beautiful order, and I don't know how long I've been talking. I'm sure it's too long. I was gonna pay attention when I started, but I'll probably go on until, there's a clock up there. I never looked at it. Okay, I probably said enough for one night. And there's a website with lots of stuff on it. I've been talking, what I should tell you is, so when I was in Carmel, I was always meditating on the messages of Father Gobbi, and Mary keeps saying, read the Apocalypse. Oh no, read the Apocalypse, oh no. And so I have to be obedient. I would read it, and I didn't understand any of it. I read it again, I got nothing out of it, but Mary said, keep reading my book. I thought, this is so boring, and I don't understand any of it. But then I explain I have a whole series now on the Apocalypse in which I unpack all of Father Gobbi's messages. I finally found the thing that unlocks. She has a whole set of keys and codes there that I missed for a long time, and then it just unfolds like a tent. And so I've got a series on the Apocalypse, especially on Father Gobbi, and then I just take off from there. And then I've got a whole series on Mary's apparitions. I try to research them carefully and then present them within an hour talk with some. I just talked into a microphone at the beginning. It wasn't the greatest audio thing, and then just put some pictures up there. Now I'm starting to do actual live camera stuff, and then I have a section on Marian consecration, because I had a very difficult time with that in Carmel. I mean, I have vows to Jesus. What's the deal with Mary? Why do I have to make a consecration to a woman who's not even divine? I mean, what's this all about? And you'd be surprised how little there is on that in theological treatises. Maximilian Kolbe complained about it all the time. He said, we haven't really dug into this. And so I did. I said, I'm not going to make this consecration until I really know what I'm doing. And so I asked priests, I consulted books, I read everything. And finally, I just had to go back to Genesis and spend hours and months and years with Genesis, trying to unpack who Eve should have been. What did she fail to do? And how is Mary the new Eve that fulfills the vocation that the original Eve ruined? And so I finally got to that point, and then I was hooked on marriage. It's okay. And so I have a whole series, half-hour talks on Marian consecration at a deeper level. So when I first got out of the convent, I got 2 years training in active order, and I hoped that they would just adopt the rule and I would just be one of the sisters, but they said, nope, you got to go and start it yourself. And so I went back to Mom and lived with my mom for a little while, and everybody said, go talk to Father Bernard Georges, because he's been in the American Movement of Cenacle since he was a teenager. And so he was so excited. But then as I explained, my insights on the Blessed Virgin and the messages, he said, you've got insights I've never heard before, and you connect the messages. For you, it's all combined. It's not just like she appears here and there. For you, it's a big mosaic for a bigger picture. He said, you've got to get a YouTube channel and an internet site, a website, and start talking. And now he stops. He said, now she never stops talking. She's making up for all the last time she was in the cloister. So, and actually they're starting to leave now in the back of the church. They're sliding out. So I think I'm done talking tonight. But it was a delight to be with you, and I'm here for any questions in the back or anything. And do please take some of this material, read these prayers, meditate on Mary's messages. God bless you. May Jesus and Mary be loved by all hearts. Thank you, Ron, for doing that. I can upload that. Don't have to repeat myself. I just say, go watch that YouTube channel. Not going to say it again.